Good evening, everyone. I'm Douglas Lea, the Disaster Recovery Officer with the County of Hawaii. I have the privilege of opening up our important meeting tonight and welcoming everyone. Our Revitalize Puna event today is the second of a series of events we'll be doing that we kicked off back in June 19th at Leilani Estates. And we're really excited to bring everyone back together as part of this follow-up with some exciting news to share, some updates, contributions that have really been coming from folks across our communities, and to keep the momentum and these conversations around action moving forward. We will cover a couple of things as we get kicked off and kind of let some more folks join. As we get started, I just wanted to acknowledge some of the folks who made today possible. For Chas Kitano and for Misty Carter and the team that they led for the Set the Table food drops, can't think of a better word for it, in our community at Makuhu earlier this afternoon, to Sharon and the team that led the Community Resource Happy Hour that just wrapped up, to Zoe Callahan and Uilani Kuali'i, who are backboning our tech tonight, as well as many of the members of our own recovery team, the administration, and members of leaders of our recovery capacity areas. Really bottom line of the work that's happened since June 9th and that have been really essential to bringing everyone together. I will moderate our evening today and introduce folks as they come on board. But really just wanted to thank everyone who made today possible and thank everyone here for joining and being a part of this conversation today. As we get started, could I ask that the slides for the evening be put up? Thank you. Next, please. So this evening we'll be covering a number of topics. We will start really with an opening protocol. After the protocol, we'll be talking about kind of the purpose and the outcome, really what we've come together on. This metaphor of setting the table, which we've also taken to a very physical manifestation with the work we've done up to this point. We want to introduce some partners, including CDFA, which is the Council of Development Finance Agencies, who are joining us on island this week and with us tonight. And then we also want to then transition to updates from each of the resilience capacity areas who've been doing their work to convene since we kicked off this process over the last few months. We also want to talk about some of the resilience activities that are going to be forthcoming and what is going to be happening with the action teams. So the kind of first half of our time together is going to focus on the work of the resilience capacity areas, what's happened and what's coming. Our work is really structured around these 90-day cycles to really focus us and to get small wins and build the momentum for the big wins as well, as we focus on recovery implementation. The latter part of our time today, we will be listening to some updates on some important investments in infrastructure and following the 2018 eruption in the Puna Makai area. And we have members of the county leadership here joining us, who will be leading us through that conversation. And we'll wrap up with some evaluation and reflection and some next steps and a closing protocol. So we will be also kind of dropping information in the chat. I'll talk about ground rules in a minute. But at this point, I would like to see if Layla has joined us and hand it off to Layla to lead us through the protocol.
All right, aloha mai kako. Mahalo for joining us tonight. And as we begin our meeting this evening, we'd like to just start with Eho Mai. For those of you that are not familiar with it, it is a chant that's asking for Ike from above. We're asking for that knowledge from above, the many hidden things that we may or may not see or think that we see or need to see. So we're asking for the Ike from above, for all the wisdom that's contained in the songs and the chants, and to just grant us that. And so as we go about our evening, we'll start with Eho Mai. Eho mai ka ike mai luna mai e. O na mea huna no e au. O na mele. Eho mai. Eho mai. Eho mai eho mai ka ike mai luna mai e o na mea huna no e au o na mele eho mai eho mai, eho mai, eho mai, ka ike mai luna mai e, o na mea huna no e au, o na mele, eho mai, eho mai, eho mai, mahalo.
Mahalo, Leila, for leading us through that. So to ground us in our time together this evening, want to really speak about the purpose and outcome, this metaphor of setting the table. This work, you'll hear resilience capacity area, RCA, action teams, quite a bit. This is a model that we initially proposed in the Kilauea Recovery Resilience Plan that over the last few months, kind of folks have been coming together. And what is it really about? It is about investing capacity within our communities and with the county to collaborate on action, and kind of really thinking about the focus of actions and the time boundness of activities as well. And so we will start conversations today that help us to set the table. We'll speak a little bit about funding and resources that are coming to the county to support this work. And this model of setting the table really aligns with this Rural Placemaking and Innovation Grant that we'll speak about a little bit later in the agenda. But really it's about laying a foundation, and we really felt the metaphor of setting the table was really appropriate for how we prioritize sharing resources and working together in our community. And throughout today, want to revisit a concept that we've introduced as through some of the earlier kickoff meetings, this spectrum of community engagement. It is a spectrum from inform to consult, involve, and collaborate. And even this evening, we will start from a place of empowering, really focusing on the work of the resilience capacity areas, the progress they've had to date, and the work that's ahead of us. We will also cover the consult phase, in particular around the investments in infrastructure and the next steps there that we'll cover in the latter part of our meeting, and inform on recovery updates, essentially kind of where we are now and what some next steps are. So really wanted to highlight the spectrum because we feel like it's a good way to ground ourselves as we move in and out of different conversations and different content as well. Our event in June was so powerful, I think, for a lot of us, not only to be able to come together again and to have such really robust participation from folks across all of our communities in Puna. Here we are, virtual, and still really happy to see the very robust participation, a lot of familiar faces, but also some new names, new friends as well. But to facilitate this virtual engagement, I really want to just offer some ground rules, both technical and communications wise. Throughout this, if you have any questions, in particular, as we get into some of the presentations from the resilience capacity areas, please click the chat icon that you see before you and ask your questions via chat. Our team will be moderating that as we move through the program. And in such a large group, we really want to take the opportunity to hear from everyone, and we value everyone's views. Like with all engagement, we really ask that we all listen and contribute with an open mind. This work is very multifaceted. We all have different roles to play, and in a lot of ways, we also encourage and invite your contributions to this work. There will be kind of informal ways to talk about that as we go through our program, as well as formal ways too. We will drop links to Google Forms in the chat throughout the program. So you'll have opportunities to weigh in, to provide feedback, offer questions that really aren't about what's in front of us in the very moment. But in case you missed the opportunity to respond through the chat, through these links, we will be following up with an email for all registered participants with that same information. So just because you missed the chat, we can still make sure that you're included in the follow-up from this evening. Great. So I want to pivot for a moment and hand the mic over to our partners at the Council of Development Finance Agencies. Before I do, I just want to provide some background. Several months ago, as we were looking ahead to this work of the resilience capacity areas, and also work that we're proposing with funding with the USDA, an opportunity came up for us to really nominate our Puna community for technical assistance through this national, very kind of well-known and resourceful organization that works on community development finance in both rural communities, suburban communities, and urban ones, consulting with everything from the federal government to the World Bank. And we were very fortunate to be selected. We were just kicking off this tech assistance with them on island this week, meeting with a number of our partners, joining us here this evening. So wanted to take a moment to introduce them and hand the mic over for them to talk about their work. This work is just starting. With this work, we want to kind of be clear on a lot of information sharing, listening this week as we look ahead to what this technical assistance work shapes up to be. So with that, I'll hand it off to our colleagues at the Council of Development Finance Agencies.
Douglas, thank you so much. Good evening, everybody. My name is Katie Kramer. I'm the Vice President at the Council of Development Finance Agencies. Douglas, could you give me a thumbs up if you can hear me okay? Wonderful. We're so honored to be joining this meeting today, and we've had a wonderful visit to the Big Island and a deep dive in several meetings today with county officials and many community members learning about the work that you are doing. I'm joined today by my colleague, Allison Rowland, and together we're working very collaboratively with the county to be able to look specifically at financing solutions that can be aligned to the work that you are doing, to the work of recovery, to the work of revitalization and resiliency in the Puna region specifically, but more importantly, how that work and how that investment supports the health and resilience of the entire island. We're based in Columbus, Ohio, and we're thrilled to be in Hawaii. I'm just going to say that right now. It's beautiful here. Thank you for having us. We work with state and local governments all across the United States, though. And our focus is on how you identify the financing solutions for the community priorities that are identified. What does it look like to invest? What does it look like to identify federal sources, state or local sources, private sources to support your community goals? Sometimes those projects are complicated. Sometimes they're very straightforward. But we work on large and small projects all across the country. We work in urban communities. We work in rural communities. We work in very remote communities. We work in communities that you might typically think are very highly resourced, but still are constrained by politics, still are constrained by struggles to support the entire ecosystem. So our job is to help you work through that. Our job is to help you understand which financing sources might be the right choice for you. In the toolbox of hundreds of options available to you, what might be the 5 or 7 or 10 choices that make the most sense for accomplishing your goals? We have had the opportunity to be in and among the Puna region. I apologize for the background noise. I'm so sorry. I'm not quite sure what to solve for that. I can certainly pass it off to Allison, who is with us, who might have a little bit less background noise on her computer. We had the opportunity to visit the Maku'u Farmers Market this weekend. We had the opportunity to be with many community members and assets throughout our time here already, getting a chance to understand your values, your needs, what makes your community special, and more importantly, how you drive capital to support those needs. I'm going to pause because I don't want to disrupt you with my background noise. I'm going to turn it over to Allison, and Allison, maybe you can take it over from here, talking a little bit about our approach to technical assistance and some of our goals that we're trying to achieve while we're here in the community today.
Sure. Thank you, Katie. Nice to virtually meet everyone on this call. As Katie started to sort of mention, this is a technical assistance project that CDFA is very happy to be involved in. And we're here to help you all understand, or better understand, the financing sources available to invest in your community, very broadly speaking. More specifically, CDFA is currently funded by the USDA Rural Development to help a total of 6 communities, Hawaii County being one of them, figure out a way to best finance some sort of community facility project. And in this case, we are working with the county to figure out financing solutions for resiliency hubs, specifically in the Puna region. We have been, like Katie said, had the opportunity to explore the island in the Puna region very specifically over the past couple of days, and drive around and visit the Maku'u Farmers Market and really just absorb. We are absorbing, we are listening, and we are meeting with county officials and other stakeholders. And we are excited to really try to figure out what is a way to provide funding and financing sources to make these resilience hubs in across the Big Island, but very specifically in the Puna region. I see some things in the chat. I'm going to click on that real quick. I'm not very good at keeping up with the chat while I'm talking.
Yeah.
So.
It's okay. Yeah, I appreciate that, Allison. I think we are good in terms of the broader scope. And, we wanted to take time in today's meeting to really introduce this work, since you all are with us on island. Today being the first day, kind of us visiting a number of sites in the Puna area tomorrow. And, look forward to, in the coming weeks, kind of wrapping up and synthesizing what you heard while you're here, some follow-up conversations that we'd like to set up to really encapsulate that in a next step kind of progress and plan about this really project objective around financing community facilities to support our food systems in Puna. So really thank you, Katie and Allison, for contributing what you've shared and also for being a part of this. We're very excited to work with you and the CDFA team.
Thank you for inviting us into your community this week, Douglas. We are truly grateful.
So with that, I'd like to hand over the show to close colleagues, Bob Agris and Ashley Kirkowitz, who will walk us through the work of the resilience capacity areas and really zoom in on some of those activities. Ashley?
Mahalo nui, Douglas. Aloha kako, everyone. Next slide, please. Thank you. So good to be with all of you. Really loved reconnecting in Leilani Estates back in June for our first inaugural Revitalize Puna. Happy to continue the momentum and work through this virtual activation, and really excited and honored to be sharing with you a second really exciting announcement, and that is we have secured a federal grant from USDA. We are one of 18 counties across the nation to be awarded the Rural Placemaking Innovation Challenge grant. It is a cooperative agreement with the USDA over the next 2 years to build up community capacity and administer technical assistance. So what does all that mean? Remember, there was work to engage community post-eruption to build the Kilauea Recovery and Resilience Plan, the KARRP. We're bringing that plan to life. We're working in these spaces through Revitalize Puna, through the resilience action teams to empower community to identify as well as take action on the priorities in this plan. So USDA is going to be an active partner in these activations, identifying different funding streams that are available from the federal government. And with the work and partnership from CDFA, we'll be able to braid those capital streams together and really increase resilience within the community. This federal award is totaling $225,000. It is going to be used to support the community work we are doing through these activations and everything that the resilience action teams are ideating around, supporting different demonstration projects to pilot, to test, to really learn, and then creating roadmaps for action. So at the end of the 2 years, what we're really hoping is that community partners will be able to successfully write and secure federal grants. So really excited that we're able to merge the technical assistance from CDFA with the support from federal government through this USDA RPIC grant. Mahalo.
Mahalo, Ashley. Ashley was talking about this USDA grant. It's about placemaking. And so we wanted to share with you the definition that USDA has of placemaking, which is a process that involves public, private, philanthropic, and community partners working together to strategically improve the social, cultural, and economic structure of our community. In order to push on this placemaking, it is a place-based strategy, meaning for us as island people, we need to have a deeper understanding of our connection and relationship with our places, with our aina, to recognize each other's unique gifts and the special assets of our places in order to boldly reimagine and see our communities anew. The first year deliverables for this work are the placemaking projects that Ashley was talking about that many of the action teams are already working on, and a strategic placemaking innovation plan. But wait, before your eyes roll back into your head and say, oh no, not another plan. Understand we are not reinventing the wheel. And this is actually a placemaking action roadmap that details how we can effectively implement the disaster recovery plan, the Kilauea Recovery and Resilience Plan that Ashley referred to, and doing it together by building on the community-based actions that are already in play, including eventually the kinds of financing tools that CDFA will be helping us with. Next slide, Zoe. So what we want to do is root this work in the vision that was developed by the community for the Kilauea Recovery and Resilience Plan. And as you can see, it's about fostering resilient communities in ways that honor Aina, helping our communities to recover from the 2018 Kilauea eruption, increasing our readiness to deal with future disasters, and facilitating economic and overall well-being for all residents to build longer-term resilience. And the way we move towards this vision is by taking actions to advance the 3 R's, our 3 core strategies of recovery, readiness for future disasters, and building longer-term community resilience. Zoe, next slide. So these are the guiding principles, which are the core beliefs and the underlying assumptions that will guide what we do and how we do our work with each other and our partners as we implement this placemaking roadmap and the disaster recovery plan. The first one, Aloha e Malama Aina, should underpin our work to care for our culture and natural resources and assets for 7 generations to come. The next one is about us shouldering our individual responsibilities with a deep awareness of how it contributes to our collective kuleana, our Wamo kuleana. The next one is our understanding that recovery and resilience is a kako thing. We're in it together. So we need to be mindful and deliberate about engaging and integrating efforts across sectors and across perspectives. The next one is critical, that we need to know that our youth are our future, and so we are and need to be intentional about working alongside them now and engaging them in meaningful actions to build our capacity for intergenerational work. And this is about action, so we need to be action focused, but while we take action, to lift up, listen, and learn from all voices, especially those voices that are not normally heard. And that we need to understand that building resilience needs a holistic and comprehensive approach. And then finally, that our actions are community-based, aligned with complementary and are aligned with the Kilauea Recovery and Resilience Plan and the range of county planning efforts that are ongoing, and that they are feasible, viable, and will result in true benefits to the community. Zoe, next slide. So a lot has happened since the development of this vision and the guiding principles, most notably, obviously, the impacts of COVID-19 pandemic. So we wanted to kind of check in with you to see where you are with this vision and guiding principles, whether anything has changed relative to the vision, what's important to you about the vision, what's important to you about the guiding principles, and if anything needs changing or needs to be or is missing from the guiding principles. So Zoe is going to put in a link in the chat box. So this is action time. Oh, so we put in a link in the chat box. You can go to the chat box and click on that link, and it's going to bring you to a Google Doc. And what we want you to do in the next 4 or 5 minutes is to respond to these questions. Share with us so we can see what you're thinking about where this vision are relative to what you've experienced over the last 3 years post-eruption and the guiding principles. So go ahead and do that, put in your email, and then start answering the questions. And what I'll do is while you're working on those questions, I'll walk you through them one more time so you can see the vision and then you can see the guiding principles. There you go. So there's that vision. So the question here is it still relevant? Does it need to be changed? If no need changed, then put no need change. So do that. Then the second question is, of all these components in the vision, what are the parts that are most important to you? So is it about fostering resilient communities? Is it about honoring Aina? Is it about recovering from the eruption? Is it about increasing our readiness to deal with future disasters? Or about facilitating economic and overall well-being or building longer-term resilience? Or is it about all of that is important to you? So give us your mana'o, what of these things are most important to you? And then put that in the response to the Google Doc. The next 2 questions is about the guiding principles. So again, the same thing. These are the core beliefs and underlying assumptions that will guide what we do and how we do our work, right? And so what we want you to tell us is what of these are the most important to you? Aloha malama aina, shouldering our kuleana, understanding that this is a multi-sector collaboration, so we need to encourage cross-sector and different perspectives in our work, making sure that our young people are part of this work to build their capacity, and being action-oriented while truly listening to all voices, especially those who are not normally heard, having it be holistic and comprehensive, and then making sure that it's feasible, viable, and truly benefiting the community. So what's most important to you? And do any of these need to be revised, or is there anything missing? Okay, so hopefully you filled up that Google Doc and you're about to hit that submit button. All right, great, thanks. Ashley?
Mahalo nui, Bob. All right, I'm going to take everybody through a community readiness inventory. And so what's community readiness? It is the degree to which we as a community can take action on an issue. And so it's really getting a sense of what's the baseline knowledge and skill sets and attitudes that we as a community might have to help or hinder action. And so we are conducting an inventory to better understand what we as individuals and as a collective have to contribute to Puna's recovery, preparedness, and resilience. It's really an opportunity to identify what our strengths are, come from that place of abundance, and really build upon those assets that we have. Next slide, please. There are 4 elements of readiness. The first is community interest. There is an interest and willingness by community and leaders. There is leadership within community. Formal and informal leaders in the community are making decisions on what matters. There's an interest in sharing leadership kuleana and ensuring that there are opportunities for new leaders to come forward. There are relationships and community culture. Residents from different backgrounds are coming together to engage and they trust each other. We are demonstrating this through our work with resilience action teams. Community organizations communicate and collaborate to address local needs and issues. We are demonstrating this through 2 grant programs, the Kilauea Recovery Grant and Puna Strong Grant Program. And finally, the 4th element of readiness is resources. There are financial and human resources available to implement solutions that community has elevated. And so in the chat, Ui or Zoe will pop in a short form for completing the community readiness inventory. And what we'll ask you to do is over the next 3.5 minutes, identify how well does each of these statements describe our Puna. And so to kind of inspire you and really set the mood, I'm just going to play one of my favorite jams by Uncle Brother Walter, Don't Let Me Down. Go ahead and soak all of that in and really think through how ready we as a community are, and let us know through that Google form. 3.5 minutes starts now.
From the first time that she loved me, ooh, she loved me, yeah, she loved me good. Don't let me down. Don't let me down.
Okay, mahalo nui. As mentioned in the chat, all of the links that we are sharing today as part of Revitalize Puna activation will be sent out to community, also promoted on the recovery Facebook and Instagram pages so that you have access to these resources, can share them with your networks, and really ensure that you have the time to complete and let us know where you think we are ready and where there's room for improvement. The results of this inventory will be dissected, reviewed by our resilience action teams, and really guide the work that we are doing with CDFA and through the RPIC grant. So mahalo nui for taking the time to share your mana'o. Next slide, please. Okay, finally, this is kind of a big dream for so many of us. I think over the course of our work to build and support community in some shape or form, we have all worked to develop an asset and vulnerability map. Next slide, please. And what we are doing through this process with our RPIC grant is developing a map specifically for the Puna region. The goals being understanding physical and social conditions, really getting a lay of the land, who is doing what, who can contribute, who might need kokua and assistance during times of emergency and natural disasters. Another goal being strengthening our community emergency network. We've stood up hubs and various efforts during times of crisis, and these resources, spaces can be continuously leveraged and used during times of disaster, but to support community 24/7. They can support innovation and help us through the tough times. And finally, this map can help us to more strategically deploy precious resources and support deployment of these resources effectively. So once we understand our assets, people, organizations, equipment, and our vulnerabilities, we'll be able to ensure that folks who really need the support in times of crisis are getting it. So we've got a call to action. There's going to be a couple of phases for this work. We are currently in the process of developing a framework, not starting from scratch, definitely looking at what other communities have done successfully, but really wanting to learn from them and figure out what makes most sense and is relevant for Puna. So using the next 3 months, October through December, to develop that framework. And then in phase 2, taking action and working with our action teams to populate this map with the critical contextual regional details. So if you are interested, go ahead and pop your name into the chat. Just go ahead and put map and your name, and we will be following up with you with more information about when this particular team is going to be convening to talk about the framework and the plan for action to secure various community details throughout Puna. Mahalo.
Mahalo, Ashley and Bob. Appreciate all the questions and the recommendations, especially kind of raising questions about the boat ramp at Poho'iki. We will cover that on the county update side in terms of the work that we're trying to do to coordinate with the state on the boat ramp. But we just want to acknowledge the comments that are coming in there and appreciate everyone who's also kind of contributing on this mapping exercise, which would be really critical. With that, I want to transition to the next phase. I spoke a bit earlier about what are these resilience capacity areas. These are WHOIS of folks that are co-chaired by both members of our county as well as members of our communities who are really convening the action that we're talking about. It's really a structure by which we're trying to organize ourselves and also looking for opportunities to collaborate across the 6. We will spend the next 20 minutes or so kind of hearing from each of the RCA, I'll say that for short, co-chairs, to really provide an update on where they are in this first 90-day cycle and where they are going. So with that, I will hand it off to Sharon Hirota to provide an update on the Social Resilience Social Resilience RCA. Sharon?
Aloha kako, Sharon Hirota. I work for the county with the Office of Housing and Community Development, and is working alongside community members Greg Armstrong as well as Smiley Burrows as we lead the charge in addressing the as co-chairs of the social resilience area. And part of, as we look at feedback from the community through their several sources, there are 4 different areas that we will be focusing on, and that's around looking at the existing resilience hubs and building capacity around that, and how we can duplicate those valuable services that they provide in other communities. Look into firming up disaster preparedness to ensure that whether it's through mapping and ensuring that we have proper communications in place to respond as needed around disaster preparedness, health and well-being, as well as food systems. And when you really step back, this is a lot to take on, but we are focused and moving forward. And so we met briefly and have kind of looked at what is currently in place, what we can firm up over the next 90 days, and then report back to all of you in January when we convene. So kind of highlight some of 5 areas. So the first one is there's an emergency response MOA to get one in place between Puna subdivisions and civil defense. The Leilani Community Association under Greg's leadership has one in place. It just needs to be firmed up alongside with civil defense. Framework for asset and vulnerability maps. So Ashley just shared about that work, and really looking forward to identify what we can, what does that look like? So asking questions around it and then making a plan to implement and move forward. Looking at roster of health and well-being programs that already exist, as well as social services programs, and being able to build and work alongside them to build capacity in the delivery of services in the Puna area. Around food, we talked about composting workshops that we would be able to hold virtually on various times during the month in regards to delivering those types of educational resources. And then around working alongside our economic and built hubs in terms of identifying potential places for increasing the number of resilience hubs in communities in the Puna area. So look forward, lots of work ahead of us, but really looking to work in collaboration with all of you and with our partners as we lead the way. Want to open up to either Smiley or Greg if they have anything to add that I may have missed.
Greg, I think you covered it well. Thank you.
Yeah, I definitely am.
Oh,
Yeah,
Smiley.
I just want.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so yes, it's really exciting to start this this resiliency capacity and working with the county and community. I'm really looking forward to building community agricultural hubs and working with the community on education and local sustainability. Of course, you know, we're including health, well-being, and resiliency when it comes to disasters. I'm excited to really do an outreach with what we've learned so that we can be more prepared next time around. But, you know, I think that this committee is going to kind of interplay with several other community committees that we've organized. You know, just the aspect of opening up our boat ramps and getting our roads restored, it is connected to our health and our well-being. So we're very interconnected, and really look forward to working with everybody on this. And please feel free to contribute any ideas and join us in the committee. And mahalo nui loa to all of you.
Well, thank you, Sharon, Smiley, and Greg.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. So as we move forward, I'd like to call upon Leila Ke Aloha, who will represent the Cultural Resilience Capacity Area. Leila.
Aloha mai kako, o Leila ke aloha ko'u inoa no Puna mai au. Hi everyone, I'm Leila ke aloha. I'm from Puna, born and raised, and I sit here today as the community co-chair for the Cultural Resilience Capacity Area. Bob Agers is our county co-chair as well. So cultural resilience, really, what we define as cultural resilience is our capacity to maintain and develop cultural identity and critical cultural knowledge and practices. In times of disaster and disruptions, it is about the capability of our cultural system to absorb adversity, deal with change, and continue to develop. So it is both about continuity and change. Given this, our resilience capacity area is focusing on Malama Wahikupuna, the care for our cultural resources through community-based initiatives supported by the county and state enforcement. It's also about deepening our understanding and connection to places through creative media and teaching residents and visitors how to respectfully interact with our island home by uplifting our local knowledge and wisdom. So for our capacity area, we have identified 4 objectives for the next 90 days. And we have individual action teams within the cultural resilience team that have been identified to collaborate on the action area objectives. There's currently 4 teams right now. And so the first objective is about to protect and preserve our Puna coastline and Wahikupuna. So part of our goal is to organize this huaka'i that is happening with some agencies that are coming next month in November, and help to put together an educational project in coordination with Pupu Kahi'i Holomua Ohana. So Pupu Kahi'i Holomua is, it was a meeting that we had with our lineal descents along this coastline. And really there's 6 to 7 organizations that are nonprofits and Hawaiian organizations that have been currently working on projects along our coastline. So we hui together to share information about our different nonprofits and organizations. And we'd like to share with this organizations that are coming next month about why the protection and preservation of our coastline is so important in these different wahipana. Why are these different cultural resources super important to us to preserve and protect? So that's one particular project that we're working on. We also have a collaborative one amongst the Cultural and Economic RCA, which is working on the Pohoiki Creative Placemaking Projects. And next, we also have our cultural-based organizations. So it's partnering with different organizations to inventory and expand on existing and new educational programs and curriculum to help share with others that would like to learn more about different culture, not different culture, but different Hawaiian cultural aspects and practices. So there's a team working on that. And then also another action is to partner with the hospitality industry to support existing and new culture-based education programs for residents and visitors. So many people have heard about the Pono Practice Pledge or the Pono Pledge that's happening, that's been going on. And so part of what this particular group's going to work on is really working on how do we educate people, not just visitors, but residents as well, on how to be Pono and how we are in our places. So those are the 4 different action items, which is a lot to work on. And we have a lot of work to do as well too. And so we do have some contributors that are coming from the community, other community members as well too. And I'd like to ask this, if Bob wants to share anything at this time. Anything I missed, Bob? Nope. So anyone that would like to join us is still welcome to join us in our group. If you'd like to just drop your name in the chat box, we'll get that information from our subscribers. Mahalo nui loa. Akuiho.
Mahalo, Leila. As we move forward, I'd like to hand it off to Ashley to represent on behalf of the Economic Resilience Capacity Area.
Thank you, Douglas, and shout out to my community co-chairs, Susie Osborne and Brent Norris, for their time, investment, and leadership within this particular capacity area. If we could move to the economic RCA slide, please. Thank you. So the vision we've really set out for ourselves is to create a thriving Puna, a diverse economy that elevates our assets, supports innovation and the production of value-added products through resilience hubs, and really just creating this ecosystem where residents can take their ideas and put them into action. And so we're really excited about these small wins that we are working on over the next 90 days. We really feel that as county and community comes together in this new way for collective action, it's really important for us to develop a cadence and structure for how we work together. And we do that by building up small wins so that we can tackle the more complicated, bigger projects with each other over the next 2 years and for the long term. So the objectives that we have focused on for the next 90 days are really around resource deployment, really informing what we do with the next phase of Kilauea Recovery Grant Program dollars and Puna Strong Grant dollars, creating opportunities for youth to run with ideas and to lead, improving the aesthetic of our built environment, putting more art into public spaces, and how we reimagine beloved spaces such as Isaac Hale Beach Park. And so economy, we're totally extra. Come join us every 3rd Thursday, 4 to 5:30. Drop your name in the chat. We'll also share an interest form if you are interested in joining any of these action teams, but we're doing some really fun stuff. The first thing we're going to be doing to inform proper resource deployment is conducting a survey of residents, small businesses, industry, and figuring out what's conducive to Puna, what do we want, and what's needed to really advance the economy. Mahalo nui to Main Street Pahoa Association, Amadeo Markov, Kevin Kushel, John Olson for all of your collaboration on this particular project that'll help us to inform how we program precious resource dollars and leverage that to do more. The second action we'll be focusing on is developing a digital literacy program. And this is where we're empowering youth who are so savvy with digital platforms. We're going to be working with them to develop curriculum so that they can teach kupuna and anybody in community that's interested to create and send emails, navigate Google Suite products, get onto Zoom, and just be really akamai when you're in that online space, shopping safely, the do's and don'ts of engaging on social media, so critically important as we shift to more of our experiences in the digital realm. The next 4 actions are going to be our work to demonstrate breaking down silos and intentionally collaborating across different capacity areas, because we hear that so often in communities. What are ways in which we can really work together? So the first project is a blending of the economic and cultural capacity area. And this is where we're going to elevate culture and pilot a creative placemaking project that brings the mo'olelo, the stories and history of Poho'iki to life, with interpretive signage, art installations, and creative media experiences. The next project is going to be a blending of economy and the built capacity area, where we will work to create a plan for Paint the Town, a strategic paint refresh of Pahoa Village to revitalize businesses and build up community spirit. The next will be a blending of economy, built environment, and culture, where we're going to support Poho'iki and really envision and reimagine how Isaac Hale Beach Park could really be a place of community gathering, and how we program the available federal monies to support recreation and community gathering and resilience. And finally, we'll be collaborating with the social and built capacity areas to develop that resilience hub map, figuring out who are our partners, where are there opportunities to help folks get to the next level of optimal service in reaching their communities, and figuring out what other communities are out there that would appreciate the opportunity of building their community resilience through a hub. So if you're interested in joining us, pop your name into the chat. We're taking action, so join us. Mahalo.
Thank you, Ashley. So we're about halfway through our RCAs, and appreciate Zoe and Uilani dropping the link we're calling our contribution, how to join an action team. Really appreciate everyone who's already stepped up to participate just in the last couple of months. But a reminder that you can, as you hear from each RCA, you can also offer ways you want to contribute and participate. With that, I will hand it off to Garrett Smith, who will represent the built environment RCA. Garrett.
Thank you, Douglas. Thanks, Zoe. Again, my name is Garrett Smith. I'm one of the county staff working in the planning department, specifically with the Kilauea recovery effort. Happy to be here tonight with my community co-chair, Antikule Cooper. We're both representing, as was mentioned, the built environment team. Really, the built environment I would see is almost like a crossroads with land use, infrastructure, and vertical construction type projects. As you'll see, the resilience vision is somewhat broad. We really are open to looking at connectivity, as I mentioned, infrastructure, housing, as everyone knows, has been a huge issue, county and statewide. That's also sort of falling underneath our purview. And then one of the pilot projects that's been identified, hopefully to be tackled in the near future, is the Pahoa Village Master Plan. That's been, again, looming for a number of years with a lot of interest. The meetings that we've had so far really have identified a few different items, which was the 90-day action cycle. And you'll probably notice that a lot of them are similar. We do have crosswalks between our RCA group and the rest. So as you've seen in some of the prior slides, there is definitely interest by many different groups in developing these resilience hubs, not just in Puna, but if it's successful there, can we replicate it elsewhere around the county, dealing with human health services, maybe some governmental presence, food service availability. Again, really trying to create something that can embed itself to make the community more resilient as it thrives and grows over time. Also, Beach Park and parks in general, I know that's been a big interest in the Puna area. We would love to be coordinating with the economic team on what that looks like and reimagining Isaac Hale Beach Park. Pahoa Town refresh, again, another joint effort. I do want to mention specifically on the Pahoa Village Master Plan. At this time, there is some internal discussion going on in terms of how we can strategically use this RCA to maybe vet the scope of that project moving forward. It seems like we've tried to make a run at it twice already in the last decade or so, and we've had some eruption events that have been intervening. So hopefully third time's a charm, but we do intend to move forward with providing feedback on the scope and hopefully using our built environment RCA is almost like a subcommittee to the county's community development plan action team or action committees. Again, trying to get some additional input from the community at broad on what we want to see in Pahoa Village to make it really vibrant. I would make a call out to anybody who's interested. Please join in. Again, you can, I think we've all wanted to jockey for your attention, but we definitely could use some more eyes, some more ears, some more hands to help pick this effort up as much as you can or as little as you can. Definitely be appreciated. You can either contact us through the form that's been circulated by Zoe, or just let us know via email. We're going to be meeting on a regular basis, not just this 90-day period, but moving forward. And I think that's one of the things we'd like to reiterate to everybody. You might not have a lot of time maybe this month, but as maybe the winter time frees your schedule up, feel free to join in as much as you can. These RCAs really are developed to let people invest themselves in the community as much or as little as they can, because life obviously takes different twists and turns, and if we get enough people involved, it'll help carry that work effort forward. So that's my little spiel for the built environment. And to Pule, if there's anything you'd like to chime in on, or if anything I missed, yeah, feel free to jump in.
Thank you kindly, Garrett. Aloha mai kako. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you all and look forward to working on many things that affect not only our Puna, but our generations to come, as was said earlier. The one thing I would like to add, and thank you, Garrett, well done, is that the state entities that are also responsible for a lot of our recovery efforts, specifically with regard to the boat ramp, we have been working diligently with DOBAR and DLNR since day one. And fortunately, we are at a point where my understanding is FEMA now has the documents to review to start the process. But in that light, I'd like to also bring up that all accretion lands are also in control of the DLNR. So as we move forward, not only is the buyout properties going to be their county, of course, but the jurisdiction again falls under the state of Hawaii, and we must be certain that they are held to their charge as we are held to ours. I would like to also bring people or agencies like the DHHL, for example, which has a very large footprint in our Puna. OHA, Office of Hawaiian Affairs, which reaps millions of geothermal royalties from our Puna and has an obligation to contribute to our well-being also as beneficiaries. The University of Hawaii and the Department of Education needs to come to the table, in my view, to assist us in revitalizing our keiki and their learning process. We've all been through quite an experience, and I would like to see our keiki supported by the Department of Education far more than today, in my view. And my last note I'd like to add, if you please, is with our state legislature opening up, I would hope that we would have some sort of solid plan to move forward, as our two very capable elected officials, Joyce and Buenaventura and Gregor Iligan, will take to the state our basic needs and hopefully some of our wants that can be accomplished with the millions that are going to be flowing around in short order. I leave you with that, and thank you kindly.
Thank you, Auntie Kule, and thank you, Garrett, for your contributions and updates. Now I'd like to hand it over to Franny Brewer, who will represent the Natural Environment RCA.
Thanks, Douglas. So I'm representing our team, co-chaired by me from the community and Bethany Morrison and Michelle Agabe from the county side. And we have goals for our 90-day cycle, a goal basically that is very modest at the same time as being really ambitious. Our area, natural environment, the definition or sort of the goals that were put into the action team projects are a little bit not quite where we are, because it's addressing invasive species and the impacts of invasive species, but the word eradication is used, and that's really going to be unlikely with the amount of invasive species that are throughout Puna. So really we're talking about mitigation. So as you can see here, we've sort of changed that goal to be more realistic about what we're going to be working on, which is invasive species mitigation. And we're also looking at areas that can be reforested, or where there's enough native forest that can be protected. So trying to have goals that are doable, that are really realistic within the framework of what we have. And then the second piece of the resilience vision for our team was climate adaptation and restoration. So on that side, Michelle Agbegay, she is the sustainability coordinator, I believe, for the county, and they are actually working on a project right now, collecting information from the community on just perspectives and input and viewpoints on climate. So if you haven't filled that out, I don't know if you guys have that link available, but that would be a good one to put out there. And so that's happening on the climate adaptation side. On the invasive species mitigation and reforestation side, that big, ambitious, and yet modest goal is that we need to determine what is already happening on that level. And I kind of want to echo what Auntie Ku'ule just mentioned about how there's a lot of state jurisdiction in Puna and a lot of state work. And certainly when we're talking about forests and we're talking about natural resources, a lot of that is projects or things that are being handled by state agencies. And so sort of mapping out who they are and where they are, and how everyone from like a nonprofit like Malama o Puna to the work that we're doing at Big Island Invasive Species Committee, sort of where does everybody overlap and what are we working on? What are the gaps? Where are the gaps between those projects that need to be filled? What kind of resources do those projects need? And where are the synergies? Where do we see people working kind of maybe side by side without even really understanding how they could connect, or how a little bit of an additional resource could make that project really zoom. So that's basically where we are. We have a tool. When we did have our meeting, and we do have a tool now that is an online spreadsheet that we are populating with the information about these projects. So, you know, feel free, please, to share with us if you're aware of stuff going on. We're already starting to populate that and identify. We'd like to eventually map that in ArcGIS. We don't currently have that capacity. We weren't able to identify that, but again, we were only in our very first meeting. So if you're someone that has that ability, including access to Esri, then that would be something that we would really like to see, being able to map those efforts, you know, visually, where we could really see where people are operating and what they're doing. And that's it. I know Michelle wasn't able to be here. She's on vacation tonight, but Bethany, if you had anything you wanted to add.
Thank you, Franny. And finally, I'd like to hand it off to Uilani, who will speak on behalf of the Youth Resilience Capacity Area.
Aloha kako, I'm Uilani Kuali'i. I'm a Lead for Hawaii Fellow with the Kilauea Recovery Division. And I'm going to be one of the community co-chairs for the Youth RCA. So the Youth Resilience Action Team will create an approachable environment where Puna's next generation of leaders can feel empowered to have a seat at the table, a voice in the narrative, uplifting our youth to recognize and understand who they are as a part of the larger Puna community that they come from, will allow confidence in self-identity and empowering them to elevate their inherent visions through their own words and actions. The vision of our Youth RCA is to energize Puna's youth leaders to harness their individual talents in programs that interest them in order to nurture their growth as leaders while providing volunteer services to their community. We exist to equip young people to develop a deeper relationship with their environment, encourage valuable connections with other youth, and ignite community changing alliances through multi-sector collaboration. So on behalf of the Youth RCA, we look forward to working with you both. Mahalo.
Thank you, Uilani. So really want to appreciate not only the updates and information that each of the co-chairs shared, but also to the contributions of everyone who got us here, right? Just over the last couple of months, start to come together, really look at a vision and identify what some of our action steps are. To close out this portion of the meeting, I just want to ask Zoe, our tech assistants, to drop that link. Thank you, Zoe. To really fill out your interest in the forum. For those of you who have not signed up or have not participated. And while we take a minute to do that, I also want to discuss in our recovery and resilience plan, there was also a capacity area around the governance of risk. This one was really identified as a role for folks within the county to step into in terms of really understanding how we move forward. How do we live with hazard? How do we live with risk as part of our broader resilience effort? So wanted to kind of just clarify that. I know I've gotten a couple questions about it. And really that is kind of an internal coordinating group that is involved in a lot of this work through meetings like today, and a lot of coordination on the infrastructure projects and the planning that we know are really critical for our communities to recover and to even start a conversation on resilience. I will kind of transition with that, and thank you. If you see on your screen now, these are really the call to action for everyone who hasn't had a chance to get involved yet, to please join an action team, promote the community readiness inventory and that survey that we shared earlier in the evening. And also similarly with the asset and vulnerability map, great to see that some folks are already kind of signing up to be part of it. And I really thank you. And, I know that folks are balancing things on their phones, on computers today. It's been a lot of information just in this first hour we've been together. Gives me an appreciation for our educators and our keiki and what they've been through this past year and a half, for sure. Just know that all the links that we've been sharing in the chat, we will be, just a reminder, we will be following up in an email, so that if you didn't get a chance to complete your input or you want to share it out to other members in our communities, please do. You'll have that information at your fingertips. And then all the contributions that you're sharing in the chat will also be saving for our notes and for this meeting. Again, thank you for all the updates and all the hard work so far. Really excited about the work ahead.